Jeff Nussbaum, you work for IPM.
Correct.
And what does IPM stand for?
Well, I mean, once upon a time it was International Professional Marketing, but it really has no relation on the firm's business now.
What do you guys do?
So IPM is the primary business. We are a systems integrator. So we do project-based consulting around some specific technologies, namely application delivery and virtual desktop solutions. So we work with vendors like Citrix and VMware, EMC, Microsoft, and to name a few.
How's business?
Business is good. It's busy. It's definitely busy. So that's that's the IPM primary business, and then my side of the house is I run our staffing division, which is much more akin to a typical agency or recruiting firm or,
right.
or what you want to call it. And we do, I guess, pretty much everything that comes in request wise from our clients that's not project based in the New York area around those technologies, but still requires resources. Then we'll deliver, whether it be staff log work, project work, or full-time placement.
How's your business? How is it? People needing IT staff.
So it's different than it was leading up to 2 years ago. There definitely are needs for staff, but people are very reluctant to pull the trigger on expanding their staffs from a budgetary standpoint, just from a risk standpoint. So seeing a lot more demand for contractors or consultants, and much less so for full-time employees. People will still replace or backfill full-time employees, but from an expansion standpoint, not seeing so much of it.
Is that often how they do it? Do you hire somebody temporarily, and then if it works out, or if they finally have a need, they'll put them on?
It's a way of doing it. And, people will usually bring people on either on a contract basis or on a full-time basis, or sometimes they will want to do a attempt to perm or try and buy, or whatever they want to call it. I think the goal when they bring people on in that type of situation is to bring people on with the intention of converting them to full-time. So as opposed to doing a 90-day probation period with a full-time employee, they'll say, well, before we go commit to that and go through HR and background checks, let's just bring you on as a contractor. If we fall in love, then we'll convert you to full-time. But with people who are being brought on as consultants with a specific task, or even if there's no real task other than staff log for a particular duration of time, the intention isn't usually to convert. It happens sometimes, and we protect ourselves in our contracts that if they want to convert them, they have to pay us a fee. But right. I would say 90% of the time it doesn't work out that way.
It has an end date, and they pretty much stick to it.
And sometimes the end dates will continue, and they'll extend and they'll extend and they'll extend. But there's still, or usually it's coming out of a professional services budget versus coming out of a full-time hire budget.
Do you find the IT folk, the person who's looking for the job, reluctant to go to that position? They're looking for the full-time work instead?
I think it depends how long they've been out of work, or if they're currently working. So people who have a job right now are very reluctant to leave certainly for contract work. Right. And even for full-time work, it's a bird in hand in this market goes a long way. There's a lot of risk in trying something new, because if it doesn't work out, you can be out of work for a while. So definitely there's reluctancy with people who are working. I think with people who've been out of work for a while, not to say there's desperation, but certainly people consider all options and would consider contracts. Put food on the table wherever they can.
Why are there so many available jobs in IT and yet so many unemployed techs?
That's a good question. So I think also what's changed over the last couple of years is that because it has been a hirer's market, they have the opportunity to be much more particular about who they hire. And because they don't have the opportunity to hire a whole bunch of people, so very often now companies are hiring one person to do 2 resources jobs or 3 resources jobs. So people may be looking for generalists, but they want them to be deep in multiple areas. And because of that, they can't afford to be wrong, and they can't waste their budget in case they're wrong, because they have to let the person go. Then they may not have budget to hire the person back again. So I think there's an equal fear on the hiring manager's part that they have to get it right, and they have to get exactly what they want in the right person, and not make a mistake.
Probably also plays into why they want to hire the person on a contractual basis, to see if they're really qualified for it.
Absolutely.
What is your advice to techs who are very good at what they do, yet they freeze during the job interview?
Practice. I think that's, get some coaching from whoever they're working with, whether it be a recruiter, an outsourced department, or outplacement, I should say. But just practice, whether it be in a mirror or with your wife or a friend or whatever it is. But I think also more and more so, IT and the business are merging, and whereas it used to be IT was in a basement or a back office somewhere and had very little customer interaction, these days it's more so. There's definitely a blend, and the customer facing piece of the skill set of an IT resource is more and more important than it ever used to be. So if no matter how strong their skills are, if they walk into an interview and they blow it in terms of communication skills or just personality, customer facing, it's a problem. Yeah.
I am reading that the cloud is going to displace a lot of people in those basement shops, in those at those companies.
Right.
And my thinking is that those jobs are going to move with the cloud, wherever that cloud goes. That you might not be working in IT in a law firm, but you'll be working at an IT shop that supports that law firm. Do you think that the job will just disappear, or that it will move?
So the cloud is definitely coming.
Yeah.
It's not here yet, but it's coming. And exactly what it's going to mean in its final iteration, I guess we'll constantly be evolving. So a couple answers to that question. I don't think it's going to be a straight segue from if there was a job in a private data center, and now there's going to be an equal job in the cloud. Technology is also changing, which is enabling cloud technologies, aside from all of the virtualization type technologies that are going into it. Even on the infrastructure side, you have, so for example, you have I guess Cisco, and I don't know if I want to talk about particular vendors here,
Please.
but you have Cisco, EMC, and VMware, who all got together and now have their vBlock, which is essentially one rack which handles networking, storage, and computing, replacing, again, not exactly replacing, but as a solution to having separate servers, storage, and networking gear. And now, or until now, you had 3 different support functions within a data center supporting. So you have your networking team, you have your storage team, and you have your server team. I think as things like vBlock evolve, you're going to have one team supporting that entire block. So there definitely will be consolidation of functionality as virtual desktops roll out more and more so with Citrix Zen Desktop or VMware View or Microsoft products. You're going to have less need for desktop support folks. Rollouts are going to be the push of a button as opposed to whole teams doing imaging. So the technology will save money in a lot of different ways for the business, and one of those ways is going to be by reducing IT headcount, unfortunately.
And when you say that vBlock, you can see why you need someone in the staff that knows all 3 parts of that puzzle, rather than just being specialists in the server.
Right,
yeah.
which goes back to there being more and more demand for generalists, but not jack of all trade, master of none generalists who actually are masters of multiple technologies.
Very interesting. It's very different than it's gone from being a generalist, a network administrator, just doing everything,
right,
to really being very specialized, just knowing DBA, and now it's getting very broad again.
Yes.
What's the most important to you, experience, certification, or a college degree?
So always experience. I think college degree is generally preferable for most hiring companies. For most, it's not an absolute. I think for some consulting companies it would be, just because they have certain SLAs in terms of the consultants that they're delivering, that they have to have certain certifications or educational backgrounds. But I think most hiring managers are more concerned with experience and somebody being smart as opposed to the degree. Mm-hmm. On the certification front, really the only certification that, from my experience, and others may disagree, but from the world that I deal with, that really carries a lot of clout is the CCIE. So networking folks who've passed their, actually are a numbered lab past CCIE, it sets them apart from the rest of the pack and become more desirable, and it says something about what they're capable of doing.
Right.
Beyond that, not so much.
So my CSP is probably pretty useless.
I think also a lot has become clouded. I mean, I don't know because I haven't taken certs, but supposedly
right.
you have access to a lot of information on the web and on eBay, and it's I think if it's not a lab given exam, then there's a certain element of distrust to the cert anyway.
Definitely.
On the project management side, PMPs definitely carry recognition, ITIL certs, Six Sigma still. So some of the more functional, not so technical, but still within our world, definitely carry weight. But if the true technical certs, I think the CCIE is really the one.
So I thought you were going to say two. That was my guess. I didn't want to interrupt. If a tech has networking skills and have played with the cloud a little bit in a small way, what would be the best move to transition to cloud technologies, since that is the future?
So networking skills?
Yes, I've been a network administrator.
Okay.
I have some Citrix in my environment, some Zen Desktop, but I really want to, be a VDI expert at my next job. What do I do?
Got it. I think the catch-22 with any career within technology, and probably a lot of other careers, although I don't have the experience, is how do you get to that next level or to a different level? And not level in terms of I'm going to go from a individual contributor to a project lead to a project manager, but more so how do I get from I'm a straight Citrix admin right now and I want to start working on the VDI projects or Zen Desktop, and how do I get there? It's easier to do it within an existing environment if possible than to try to get somebody to hire you and train you for something that you haven't done in this market. Clearly. The best way, I think, to do it if you don't have the opportunity internally is probably to go work for one of the vendors. Mm-hmm. So if you could get hired on at a Citrix or at a VMware, or at a, let's say not second tier, but a little bit more on the outer circle, go work for an AppSense or somebody else or a Wise or somebody else who's in the industry and has add-on products supporting those technologies. They will be willing to train somebody who just has a strong fundamental background in networking or servers or some sort of Citrix or VMware background, and bring them up to speed on their product. And in the process, you're going to learn everything you need to know to probably roll back. Yeah.
Thank you. What do you tell a computer science graduate who cannot find work in this tight market?
We have to edit this part, but I don't really deal with people straight out of school.
No problem.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone who wants to break into IT mid-career, because there's more opportunity in IT than there is in their current profession?
I mean, again, so like recent college grads, the companies that pay me to find them people are only coming to me for experienced hires. So really, campus recruiting and trade shows, and that are whole different departments that I don't know much about.
No worries.
Yeah.
What trends do you see in, say, the next 5 years?
So, I mean, the cloud, for sure. Almost all of my business is around infrastructure versus application development. So I don't have much of an opinion on the development side. I'm clearly from speaking to peers on that side of the business. The whole outsourcing model is constantly in flux, and remains to be seen how that's going to play out over the next few years. But the cloud and just virtualization, both on the hypervisor level and on the desktop level and the applications, is clearly changing everything.
Anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked?
I think we're pretty thorough.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Jeff Nussbaum, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really well done.